Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know First Base Solar Company promises a 99% energy cost cut, while NASA warns the tech is 80 times more expensive. We'll analyze why these wildly different cost estimates exist and how the gamble on future rocket tech could determine its adoption. Second, Microsoft's massive Azure outage caused by a single configuration change reveals the fragility of a cloud market dominated by US giants. Today, we'll take a closer look at this too big to fail risk and its implications for Europe's push for digital sovereignty. Third, Palantir lands a $10 billion US Army deal, while its own comms chief calls the CEO's pro-Trump pivot concerning. In this episode, we'll break down this rare public dissent and what it signals for ideological alignment in Silicon Valley's tech workforce. Fourth, gaming hardware, giant Razer pivots to AI promising a 40% cut in QA costs, but sparking a debate over job displacement and cheating. So we'll discuss why this pivot matters and what it means for the future of game development workflows and esports integrity. Fifth, legacy insurer New York Life funnels another $750 million into FinTech firm Affirm, validating its AI-driven lending model. This discussion will reveal how this deal connects to the rise of shadow banking and what it means for the future of consumer credit. A company just made a promise that could change everything. Your annual energy bill dropping to just $10. That's not a typo. The founder of Virtus Solis, a company developing space-based solar power, says their goal is to slash the cost of electricity from a global average of $75 per megawatt hour to just 50 cents. Now, this wild projection isn't based on today's technology. It relies on future breakthroughs, things like fully reusable rockets and robots that can assemble these giant structures in space, which would dramatically lower the cost. It's a huge bet on innovation. The idea, once pure science fiction, is to build massive solar farms in orbit. There, they can collect sunlight around the clock, unblocked by clouds or atmosphere, and then beam the energy down to Earth. So the thing is, there are two competing ideas for how to do this. The first involves building gigantic satellites way out in geostationary orbit. Because they stay in a fixed spot, they can provide continuous power. The catch, they need massive antennas. We're talking a kilometre wide in space and a receiving station on the ground 10 kilometres across. The second idea uses smaller laser-based satellites in low Earth orbit. They're cheaper to launch, but you'd need a whole constellation for constant coverage, and lasers can be blocked by bad weather. It's a trade-off. Go big and far or small and close. The potential is staggering. Space solar is more than 10 times more efficient than ground panels, and some estimates claim it could supply up to 80% of Europe's renewable energy needs. And this isn't just a theory anymore. The US military is actively funding it, hoping to one day beam power directly to battlefields. A test has already beamed energy across the length of an NFL football stadium, but that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is when you look at the military applications. This is what experts call a dual-use technology. The same system that can power a remote village could also power a military base, or in a more extreme scenario, be adapted into a directed energy weapon. This is a huge reason for the military interest. In fact, China's People's Liberation Army is all in, viewing space as a strategic domain. This isn't just a race for clean energy, it's a race for orbital dominance that could trigger a new arms race. The scale is monumental. One UK company, Space Solar, wants to build a station in orbit nearly 2 kilometres wide, claiming a dozen of them could power the entire United Kingdom. In China, scientists are working on a prototype with a 1 kilometre wide antenna. It's a space race for energy, with companies like Etherflux raising $50 million to join the fight. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of complexity. A recent NASA report warns the technology remains far more expensive than terrestrial options. In fact, one assessment suggests it could cost up to 80 times more. So how can both of these be true? A 99% cost reduction versus 80 times more expensive? The answer lies in what each side is betting on. NASA's cautious estimates are based on current technology and launch costs. The private companies, on the other hand, are making a gamble. Their entire business model assumes launch costs will plummet thanks to reusable rockets like SpaceX's Starship, and that we will perfect in-space robotic assembly. So the wild price difference comes down to one question. Do you believe that massive technological leap is just around the corner? And then there are the huge legal questions. Under international treaty, no country can own a piece of orbit. Does that change when a company builds a city-sized power station there? The reason this is a big deal is we're talking about structures that could be kilometres wide, permanently occupying orbital real estate. This bumps up against the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which explicitly states that space is not subject to national appropriation. But corporate appropriation? That's a huge grey area. And there's another even scarier risk, space debris. Experts worry about something called the Kessler syndrome, a nightmare scenario where one collision in orbit creates a cloud of debris, which causes more collisions, creating a chain reaction that could make entire orbits unusable for generations. A city-sized power station would be a massive target. The stakes are colossal. This is a high-risk gamble between world-changing clean energy and an impossibly expensive failure. Yet the vision is clear. A single power station in orbit that could, depending on demand, beam power to London, then to Riyadh, then to Cape Town, all in the same day. From the ambition of building city-sized structures in space, we now turn to the fragility of the massive digital structures we rely on right here on Earth. Get this, a single inadvertent configuration change at Microsoft just took down a huge slice of the internet. And, you know, these aren't just simple typos. A recent Uptime Institute survey found that about 39% of major outages involve human error. As these cloud systems become more automated and complex, even a tiny, well-intentioned update can trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. A while back, we unpacked how an AWS DNS hiccup spiraled into a meltdown. Today's Azure incident rhymes with that pattern. It raises a serious question. Are these platforms becoming too complex for humans to manage safely? For several hours, websites for major global companies like Heathrow, NatWest, and even Minecraft simply went dark. In the US, people couldn't access Starbucks or Kroger. In the UK, supermarket Asda and mobile operator O2 were impacted. The outage was so severe, it even forced the Scottish Parliament to suspend business because its online voting system failed. If that sounds familiar, remember when Disney Plus and Lyft blinked off during the AWS incident, a different casualty list, same fragility. What really brought this to a head was the impact on government functions, shining a light on how deeply our public services now depend on a handful of American tech companies. We previously analysed how an issue in Virginia rippled into UK services, feeding Europe's push for digital sovereignty. Synergy Research Group shows that US giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google control around 70% of the European cloud market. This is exactly why Europe is trying to build its own sovereign cloud to prevent this kind of geopolitical dependency. Today's Microsoft outage puts that argument back on the front page. Microsoft's Azure cloud platform reported a degradation of some services due to DNS issues. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's the exact same root cause that crippled Amazon Web Services just last week. Back then it was AWS's DNS around DynamoDB. Today it's Azure's DNS after a configuration change. To understand the fallout, you have to look at DNS, the domain name system. It's basically the phone book of the internet. As we explained a while back, it's a foundational technology from the 1980s that turns a website name you can read, like Microsoft.com, into an IP address a computer can understand. The problem is, this old system has become an Achilles heel for modern cloud platforms. When the cloud's own internal phone book goes down, thousands of services that rely on it can't find each other, and everything grinds to a halt. This second major outage in as many weeks exposes a terrifying vulnerability. So how big is the blast radius? Estimates put Microsoft Azure's control at around 20% of the entire global cloud market. We've noted before that AWS sits at roughly a third, so the concentration risk is obvious. When you add that to Amazon's share and Google's, you have three companies controlling the vast majority of the cloud. This is why experts are now using the phrase too big to fail, just like they did with the big banks before the 2008 financial crisis. Gartner has even identified this cloud concentration as a top emerging risk, warning that the failure of just one of these giants could trigger widespread systemic disruptions. Regulators in the US and UK have already launched investigations into this dominance incidents like today. Give them fresh ammunition. The incident has experts sounding the alarm. As Dr. Saqib Kakvi from Royal Holloway University warns, an outage at Microsoft, Amazon, or Google can cripple hundreds, if not thousands, of applications and systems. As we said before, when a major cloud provider sneezes, the internet catches a cold. His bottom line is a stark warning for the entire modern internet. Because of our reliance on these massive platforms, he says it is effectively putting all our eggs in one of three baskets. Speaking of the immense power concentrated in a few tech giants, another one, Palantir, is facing a very different kind of internal crisis. It's concerning. That's a direct quote from Palantir's own head of global communications talking about her company's sudden political shift. To put this in perspective, the job of a communications chief is to manage the company's message, to keep it unified and positive. For one to publicly describe their own CEO's political direction as concerning is almost unheard of. It signals a potential breakdown in corporate message discipline and points to very real, deep divisions inside the company. The executive, Lisa Gordon, a self-described Democrat, went on the record about the data mining giant moving in a pro-Trump direction. This comes as Palantir's CEO, Alex Karp, a man who once gave money to Democrats like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, is now openly backing Donald Trump, citing his frustration with the Democrats. And while this internal political battle is brewing, Palantir is cementing its role inside the government. The company just landed a contract with the US Army worth a staggering $10 billion over the next decade. From a business perspective, this isn't just a personal preference. It's a calculated strategy. This breaks the mold of traditional defense contractors who try to stay bipartisan to keep contracts stable. Palantir is making a high-risk bet on one political side. For now, it seems to be paying off, with government contracts making up over 42% of their revenue. This isn't the first time Palantir's government work has made headlines. The firm, co-founded by Peter Thiel, also won a $30 million contract to build a platform called Immigration OS, a tool used by ICE to streamline deportations. This situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, you have the business strategy, while on the other, it exposes a kind of ideological gravity created by the technology itself. Palantir's core products are designed for massive data integration for surveillance, military targeting, and immigration enforcement. This naturally pulls the company toward political administrations that prioritize national security and strong enforcement. And the fractures inside the company go beyond just the Trump endorsement. The communications chief revealed an even starker ideological line being drawn, centered on CEO Alex Karp's staunch pro-Israel stance. Karp himself has admitted that the company has lost employees over his public support for Israel and expects to lose more. This is what some analysts are calling the alignment tax. It's the price of working at Palantir. The company is demanding political and ideological alignment to create a very cohesive, mission-driven workforce. But this comes at the cost of deterring or pushing out talent who might disagree. When asked about holding a different opinion inside Palantir, Gordon laid out the new reality. You don't get fired for having a different position, but you will leave if you're not aligned, ultimately, like if you don't support Israel. While Palantir grapples with internal ideological alignment, gaming hardware giant Razer is making a bold pivot that's creating a whole new set of debates in its industry. The most unexpected news in the gaming world today has to be the billionaire CEO of Razer predicting that AI will completely disrupt everything in gaming. Now get this, Razer is a company famous for its high-end gaming hardware, keyboards, mice, headsets. So for their CEO to stake their future on AI software is a massive signal. It suggests the traditional hardware market might be getting saturated, and Razer is making a high-risk pivot into AI services, a move made possible after the company went private in 2022, freeing it from short-term market pressures. And we're not talking about a small corner of the internet. This is an industry with 3.6 billion players and nearly $109 billion in annual revenue. The CEO Min-Liang Tan says the ramifications of AI across this entire sector can't be overstated, impacting how games are made, marketed, and even played. So how deep does this go? Tan points to a massive bottleneck in game development, quality testing. He dropped a jaw-dropping number. QA testing eats up to 30% of a game's budget and takes up 30% of its development time. Razer's answer is a new tool, an AI QA companion designed to automate bug hunting. The potential impact here is huge. This AI companion integrates with major game engines like Unreal and Unity to automatically detect bugs and log performance issues. The promise is a potential 40% reduction in QA costs and a 50% faster testing cycle. But this also raises a huge question about the human cost. The game industry's QA workforce is known for precarious job conditions, and while Razer says the tool is meant to augment human testers, there are serious concerns about job displacement. But it's not just for the creators. For gamers, another tool called Gameco AI will literally watch you play, then give you real-time tips on how to beat that impossible boss or solve that tricky quest. And here's where it gets interesting. A huge debate is igniting in the gaming community. An AI that gives you real-time strategic advice, well, that blurs the line between a legitimate training aid and an unfair advantage. The esports world already has strict rules against cheating software, and many are asking if these new AI coaches are just a sophisticated form of pay to win, undermining the skill that makes competition fair. This all sets up a massive power struggle. Not everyone is buying the hype. The CEO of Take-Two Interactive, the publisher behind Grand Theft Auto, recently stated that AI can't rival human game developers. This is a direct challenge from one of the biggest players in the business. But Razer's CEO is doubling down, predicting that within a year, we could see major hit games built by small teams, all powered by AI, empowering human creativity, not replacing it. This decision brings both potential benefits and comes with inherent risks. While AI could allow small creative teams to build massive worlds, it could also flood platforms like Steam with low-quality AI-generated asset flips. This could make it even harder for genuinely innovative indie games to get discovered, creating the exact opposite of the intended effect. And if you think this is just about gaming, think again. Tan's final point is the one that should get everyone's attention. He believes the future of AI itself will be born from AI gaming. Believe it or not, this is already happening. The AI techniques perfected for gaming are being repurposed for the real world. For example, procedural content generation, the tech used to build vast, unique game worlds, is now being explored for urban planning. The advanced pathfinding algorithms that guide characters in a game are being used to optimize routes for logistics companies. So when you see an AI-powered character in a game, you might be looking at the ancestor of an AI that will one day manage a city's traffic or a global supply chain. We were just talking about how AI is poised to revolutionize the gaming industry. Well, that same technology is already making massive waves in finance, which brings us to our final story. Let's start with a single fact that might just change your perspective on this. A legacy insurance giant, New York Life, just handed over $750 million to FinTech upstart Affirm, the buy now, pay later company. This isn't their first deal. It brings the total to nearly $2 billion that the insurer has funneled into Affirm's loan machine since just 2023. This new cash injection alone is set to back an estimated $1.75 billion in annual loan volume through 2026. So why is one of the oldest names in finance getting in bed with a new age lender? So the thing is, this isn't just about chasing high interest rates. Insurance companies like New York Life are sitting on a mountain of cash called the float. This is money they collect in premiums that they haven't paid out in claims yet. They have a massive strategic need to invest this float to get predictable, steady returns. Unlike venture capitalists who chase high-risk equity, insurers want stable debt investments. And a steady stream of consumer loans from a company like Affirm offers a potentially higher and more predictable yield than traditional bonds. It's actually a perfect symbiotic relationship. It's part of a massive under-the-radar trend. With higher interest rates making consumer loans more attractive, traditional financial giants are moving deeper into the fintech world to chase returns. What's crucial to understand is that a traditional risk-averse insurer doesn't just hand over billions without doing its homework. What's really happening is a rigorous due diligence process on a firm's AI-driven lending models. Insurers conduct exhaustive assessments, scrutinizing everything from data quality to algorithmic transparency to ensure it all complies with legal frameworks. The FDIC even has guidelines for this, emphasizing that these outside models must be vetted just like in-house ones. It's a crucial step to make sure the AI isn't introducing bias and that its performance won't degrade over time. And this is happening across the entire buy now, pay later sector. Klarna has tapped major investors for similar deals. PayPal struck a staggering $7 billion agreement with Blue Owl Capital. The old guard of finance is now quietly funding the new generation of consumer debt. When we place these deals alongside the lack of credit reporting, the makings of a new shadow banking system become clear. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau reported that the top 5 BNPL lenders issued over $24 billion in loans in 2021, up from just $2 billion in 2019. A lot of this is what you could call phantom debt because it often isn't reported to the major credit bureaus, hiding a consumer's true financial picture. And when these loans are sold to an investor like New York Life, you might wonder, who do you actually owe money to? The truth is, while the debt is owned by a new entity, your rights as a consumer are supposed to stay intact. Thanks to a recent CFPB rule, these BNPL lenders must now provide you with the same rights you'd get with a credit card, like the right to dispute charges and get refunds. This all comes as the market is sending mixed signals. While consumer spending remains solid, investor caution is high after recent bankruptcies rocked the subprime credit world. It's a high-stakes bet in a nervous economy. But Affirm, which has already financed over $100 billion in transactions, is betting on its track record. This partnership with a conservative institution like New York Life is actually a major strategic signal. Affirm is deliberately positioning itself as a more prime lender in a crowded market. By securing stable funding from an old guard institution, they are signaling a focus on higher quality borrowers and larger interest-bearing loans. This is a clear divergence from competitors like Klarna, which is focused more on mass market expansion. It's a move to build credibility and attract a more creditworthy customer. The company reports that more than 90% of its borrowers are repeat customers, a key metric it points to for its strong credit performance. This partnership isn't just another funding round. It is a calculated, multi-billion-dollar signal from old money that the buy now, pay later model is here to stay.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.